Let's talk to Amelia Hadfield, who heads the Department of Politics at the University of Surrey and is the founding director of its Centre for Britain and Europe. Amelia, welcome back. Lovely to see you. The Prime Minister didn't have to call an election in July. What do you make of the timing of the election announcement? Why did he do it?
You're right, and it's baffled a lot of observers and pundits. I think the idea was simply he felt he had to bring the uncertainty to an end. He wanted to bet the House, as it's now been called, on a snap election. I think probably there's a numbers story to be told here. The Bank of England's 2% target was released yesterday, the inflation figures. It was smaller than expected. It was actually 2.3, but I think the Prime Minister felt that was good enough to claim that things were slowly returning back to normal. That was very much the phrase of the day. He also cited net student migration beginning to decrease. And a couple of months earlier, he's unveiled this large defence spending. So all of this, for me, spells the sort of struts, if you like it, of an election platform. I think also the sense that a summer devoted to waiting and waiting and waiting would not make effective use of time, and he faced probably a growing risk of a leadership challenge, and the risk that something else could go much worse. So I think he made a decision at the tail end of last week, from what we can tell. He's not massively supported by everybody in the cabinet. My sense is that there was a pretty clear split between people who felt they just wanted it to get over with, and others who felt that maybe some of the improving economic news should take time to bed in so people would feel it. And possibly change their minds and vote Conservative. Political
journalists and political experts, I'm sure, get enormously excited about election campaigns. Ordinary mortals perhaps groan. Do election campaigns really make that much difference? Haven't voters made up their minds already a long time ago?
That's such a fascinating question. I think in many senses, this is hard for me as an academic to admit, but maybe campaigns don't matter all that much. And certainly some of the studies suggest that, as you say, people are fairly set in their ways long before an election has been called. And that's because of the issues that count to them and whether they're feeling looked after and listened to and supported. This can take place in the form of local elections, which we've just had here in the United Kingdom. But more importantly, I think at the national election level as well. If people feel, that they've got a clear sense of where they want to vote, that's unlikely to change. There are a couple of examples where this has gone awry. 2017, Theresa May, called a general election, deciding she was going to consolidate what she thought was a winning position, but actually it narrowed dramatically, and she only just held on. And that's because people changed their minds during the campaign. They felt actually she wasn't a credible bet. She didn't have a secure grasp. But at this point, I doubt it. Labour have such a commanding lead in the polls, between 20 and 22%. So all they really have to do is just hold on to it.
What do you think will be the defining issue for this UK election?
I think there's going to be a whole host of them. I mean, I think at the top, cost of living and inflation, that continues to dominate. While we've seen a bit of a drop in inflation, I think in real terms, people's bills, their household bills, energy bills, food prices, even larger costs like housing affordability, those are still pressing very, very hard. And I think people don't feel that the Conservatives have necessarily managed the economy, particularly after the farrago of the Prime Minister Truss mini budget, that people are really still paying for in many, many ways. Healthcare hasn't been sorted out. This will rumble on with every election, but this seems to have tailed off particularly badly in the past 4 to 5 years. And in a sense, sort of where is the country going? This sort of more existential question of the economic recovery and jobs. It's easy, perhaps 2 or 3 years now, to look back at COVID and say, well, we're in a post-pandemic era. But in many ways, actually, job creation and support for small and medium-sized businesses hasn't bounced back. So there will be questions as to which of the governing parties, is a better bet in terms of helping that resuscitation. And then finally, you've got big ticket items like climate change, you've got immigration and borders. From my perspective, perhaps, European foreign and security policy, Britain's role in the world. It just kind of depends on which of those levers, which of those issue buttons, if you like, the parties are going to press as they campaign up and down the country for the next 6 weeks.
Amelia, we shall no doubt talk much more about this over the coming weeks. For the moment, thank you for that. Amelia Hadfield from the Department of Politics at the University of Surrey.